Hello everyone, and welcome to The Impossible. I'm your co-host Austin, and today we had Heather Beeson on the podcast, discussing that words can have a huge impact on your mood, on your day, but ultimately your life, and where that can lead you down some, potentially not so good paths, but ultimately some very, very positive paths. And in that pursuit of the impossible, what you can achieve. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want to learn more about the Impossible podcast and the Impossible family, and to talk with those who are also pursuing the impossible, please join our school. This is a fantastic area for you to share your journeys and share your journey, but share your experiences of pursuing the impossible. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you guys for being back with us today for another incredible episode of the Impossible Podcast. Today, we are so excited to bring on Heather Beeson, who is one of the strongest members of the Monsters Bent Barbell family. She's been training there for far longer than I think either Austin and I have been, and she's been an integral part of that community, as well as just one of the strongest female athletes we've ever known, working as up to becoming a professional powerlifter, competing in pro-level meets, and setting pretty insane records. So guys, we're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff. Heather has an unbelievable story of overcoming some of life's greatest impossible challenges. And we're going to pull all those lessons that she learned along the way front and center for you guys to be able to incorporate into your own life and your own pursuit. But with that, we're gonna turn it over and dive in. So thanks for being here, Heather.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I appreciate you. We got in some good squats this morning too. And that was exciting because it was my first time squatting since all of the squatting back in the prosthetics since all the injuries and everything. And I know you've definitely taken a more like functional kind of approach in your own training as well.
Yeah, with some different health things that have popped up, I definitely had to step back and focus a little bit more on body weight and mobility and functionality and just feeling better, moving better, and just overall being healthier.
Yeah, that's a pursuit that like we've come to ourselves, and something I think everybody gets to at some point where, powerlifting and strength sports, competing at that like peak level physical strength it's really cool, and it's super exciting to be able to move some of those weights. But then it's also, you get to a point where you just feel it starting to take a toll on your health.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to the higher level, or don't even have to say pro level, but just a higher level to where you are competing and training, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And with the intensity that we train at, whenever pro or not, but dedication and the passion that we all have there at Monsters, it's, dare I say, not always the healthiest. It's just hard on our bodies, and it's always going to come with those aches and pains. And at some point, you just have to decide, can I keep going and feeling like this, or do I need to take a step back and kind of, I don't want to say fix my body, but get it to feeling a little bit better and getting in a little healthier spot before diving back into it. And that's definitely what I had to do, and that's where we found some health things going on and getting those corrected and starting to feel better again. So that's for today, was both new for both of us a little bit, and it was fun
interesting. We had a good time.
More exhausting than I expected it to be, but good nonetheless.
Oh yeah, for sure, it was a good time. And I think that's true of like anybody competing at the top of any sport or any pursuit. Like if you are in the top 1% of any discipline, you're probably pushing things to a point that it may not be the most like long-term healthy practice.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's a trade-off that we have to make in order to pursue certain goals. Like if we live our entire lives just simply with the sole focus of I want to live as long as possible, then you may trade off the ability to chase any of those high level achievements in life. And so it is all just a trade-off. And not that we would ever promote people like throw away their health or take, unjustified risk.
Yeah.
But we always have to find this balance point of balancing your pursuit and your passion with being able to maintain longevity in that craft or in your own life or whatever it is. Because we also see that in strength sports where people will go too hard too fast and burn their bodies out completely.
Yeah.
And then they leave on the table a whole bunch of potential they could have had had they just taken a slower, more disciplined approach.
Mm-hmm. And even with a lot of the stress that it puts on our bodies, it still puts us in that position where we have to be uncomfortable to achieve that growth, whether it's the physical growth part or the mental growth. So there's still a benefit from it. Yeah. It's just, are you willing to be uncomfortable for the period that you're doing this to experience that growth? Even with some of the struggles that came out of my period of going up to that pro level, some of it sucked. It didn't always feel that great, but I learned a lot from it, and I learned what I can do and what my body can do if I tell my mind that it can do it. And that was one of the awesome things about it. I mean, it's not very often that you can sit there and say, hey, like, I'm from Parkersburg, West Virginia, yet I was 50th and 57th in the world at one point on the record boards. I mean, I never thought that I would be able to say that about myself for anything, especially with, the way that my life went and the things I went through and overcame and got to here with this. It's just, I never thought I'd be able to say that for something. And it was worth it, and maybe one day I'll continue with it and try to get a little closer with that. But
yeah, and I love that perspective because it you look at, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but say 4 billion women in the world, and the fact that you were in the top 50s as far as strongest of 4 billion women, like, that is an unbelievable achievement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's something you'll always be able to take forward and have that knowledge that you built that level of competence, and you'll always be able to have some piece of confidence from that, and knowing that you worked at capacities you probably didn't even know you could work at, and went through the frustrations and the hardships and everything wrapped up into that. If you guys have ever been through a prep before, you know what that's like, and you came out with that result. You built that, and nobody else can ever take that away from you. And even if you would never return to that same level again, it's not time lost, it's not energy lost. You will always have that knowledge of that achievement with you. And if you put that level of work and dedication into that thing, you can transfer that over to anything else in life.
Exactly.
And that's what's so important about some of these achievements in life. And one thing we always have to keep in mind, when we're looking at the passions we pursue for life, is what does the timeline look like on this? What is the end game? What is the outcome we want to achieve? What does the timeline look like? And how is this going to serve ultimately our priorities and our pursuits going forward? And those are a lot of the questions that I think not always easy to answer, but some very important ones to have in the back of your head as we're working through some of these decisions. Is, it's got to be very hard. I know it's hard enough in my case, which is I was much lower on my list of athletes, but just when you're that strong, to step back from that strength and to essentially let it go, it's hard. It's hard mentally, it's hard physically, it's hard emotionally. What was that process like coming out of the pro level that you were at, and then how did you work to be able to work through some of that?
So what ended up drawing me back from it. I guess I should start with, I had already gotten the invite to do the same meet the following year, along with a few other pro level ones. And at the same time, I had also just graduated college through the massage program and became a licensed massage therapist in the state of West Virginia. Started doing that and very quickly realized that the caliber of the work that I do, specializing in deep tissue, is very hard on my upper body, especially on my arms, and it just was not coupling well with the level of training that is, I almost want to say, required and expected to compete at the level that I was at, especially if I wanted to continue to climb and try to get higher and to get above where I was and beat some of the other women. So it came down to, do I want this career? Do I love my work? or do I want to continue on this competitive platform? And it was a hard decision, but ultimately I've got kids, and I love the work that I do. I love being able to go and help other people like me, athletes, and the normal average Joe that's in pain, to help them to feel better and move better. And it wasn't an easy decision, but I ultimately had to choose my career over staying on the competitive platform. And then that's when, after stepping back from some of that, some of the other health things started to pop up that were there all along, but were just hidden from all the other aches and pains of the level of training that I had to keep up with. And I just thought that it was part of that. And even though it was, it also still wasn't normal. Yeah. And there for a minute, it was very frustrating, along with some other things that I was going through in life at the time. I needed the gym still, but I kind of had to take a step back just for my physical health and for the career. And it wasn't easy. I had a lot of hard days, a lot of days crying, between just family or with like Clayton, owner of the gym. And it was rough, but ultimately it was the decision that I needed to make if I wanted to ever have a chance to be able to do it again and to keep working and to keep helping people, which ultimately brought me more joy than competing. Yeah. So that's where I just had to do it and get through it. And we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, and I think the most important part of all that you talk about is you recognize that there was a choice to be made. Mm-hmm. Because I think so many of us get tied up in this situation where so many people in that circumstance would just keep trying to push to do both simultaneously.
I did.
Yeah.
And it ended up eventually getting to the point to where, along with me just, getting a little distracted at work with my technique that, I ended up having to take off a whole week of work because I couldn't even run a hairbrush through my hair or spray my perfume because my dominant arm was just like, I'm done. You've got to chill, Heather. And if you don't, you're going to be done competing in powerlifting and with your career. So that's where I really had to take a step back. And so I learned that lesson.
Yeah. And it's a hard one to learn because with our culture and our society, there's very much this kind of like grinded out mentality. Mm-hmm. And that's not all bad. There's a lot of good to that.
Oh yeah.
You can make a lot happen. You can get a lot done, far more than often what we would allow ourselves to believe. But I think where we fall astray with that is we try to get into too many things all at once. Mm-hmm. And I know I have been extraordinarily guilty of that in my life, especially when we first started the business. We were that way. And really it's been since we learned to narrow that focus so that you can direct the stream a lot farther, that we've really started making progress in the few key areas, the 3 to 5 things, whatever it will be, that are very most important to you.
Yeah.
And we've spent a lot of time talking about priorities. And with priorities, one thing that Curtis Miller taught us actually is you're never dividing your time up amongst priorities. You're always fully focused on one priority at a time, or at least that's how you should be. Mm-hmm. Because if you're like if I'm watching my daughter and I'm like 40% focused on her and 60% focused on editing my video post for that day or whatever, then I'm not putting my best effort into either one, and they're both suffering because of that. And so it's this idea that you learn to find balance between the priorities, but that balance isn't always even. But whenever you are working on one of those priorities, you are giving yourself 100% focus toward that thing. And where we get stuck is we don't always recognize that it is not actually beneficial to either priority sometimes to try to pursue two things that take the same that same massive amount of time and energy and focus. And I think what we have to do in those situations is, if you feel like you're just being pulled in too many directions, your time, your energy, your focus is being too heavily consumed, we have to look and see what's the end game here. Mm-hmm. For you, I imagine that as far as an athlete goes, you could put in 3, 4, 5 more years or however long and try to climb X amount of spots. But it's like, well, what was your end goal for that pursuit? Was it to be number one? Maybe if you were trying to be number one in the world, maybe it would have been worth that time and energy and sacrifice. But if if you're going to put 4 more years into it and climb 10 spots or whatever, is that the outcome you're wanting? And if it is, that's great. But sometimes I think when we ask ourselves that question, it becomes very obvious of, oh, that's not actually something I really want that badly anyway. So why would I put that kind of energy into it? Versus with your career, I do imagine that's something you probably want to be able to do for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's that question of, this is the outcome I want. So this is the direction I want to move in.
And that's basically how I looked at it. I sat there and I said, okay, so I can keep training, keep competing, dial it back down with work a little bit. But then I stopped and thought, okay, the powerlifting is not going to be what's going to feed me and my children. And on top of that, for me to have advanced to what would have put me anywhere near number 1, I would have had to have been willing to do things that I necessarily wasn't okay with doing, or just that went outside of what I personally, was okay with. And then it came to the career side where I was like, okay, I could dial back the gym, still be a part of the community of powerlifting. I can still do the coaching. I can still do the judging. I can still show up to the meets and help as a massage therapist, help the athletes. And then I can come back to work and I can still be number 1 in this area and be the people that everyone knows, okay, I'm hurting, I need fixed, I can go to her. Or with the traveling people when they come through, oh, well, we heard this is the girl that we need to go to. And that was what I desired more, because that's what brought me the more joy, having someone walking into my office hardly able to stand up straight or limping down the hallway and then leaving and doing jumping jacks because they feel great. And that brought more joy and for myself to allow me to be a better mother, a better friend, a better just person in general, a better provider for my kids than overworking myself in the gym to try to get to a spot that I likely wasn't going to get to realistically without, reaching the levels of doing things that I just didn't want to do. And so I had to make that decision, and I think it was the right one.
Yeah.
So.
It absolutely seems like the correct decision. And that is such a powerful skill that you were able to completely implement that takes a lot of people a significant amount of challenge to build up, just in being able to first recognize that there is a decision to be made, then to actually weigh out the potential outcomes, the risk versus benefits of each side, and then to be able to follow through with it. That's a really, really big challenge for most people. And
I can't say that there for a few weeks I didn't keep trying to be the epic little powerlifter that I wanted to be. I kept telling myself, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to get my programming back and I'm going to go in and I'm going to try, and I would, and then next thing you know, my arm was killing me again, or my shoulder wasn't wanting to operate right, and I couldn't do a certain technique at work that was benefiting people, so I'd back off again, then I'd get another pro invite, and I'm like, oh, this one's even better. I really want to do this one, so I'm like, okay, well, let's rewrite the programming, let's change it up a little bit, focus a little bit more on this. I would try again for another week, and it wouldn't take long before, whether it be the universe or just my body in general, it was like, Heather, this is just, you've got to pick. Yeah. And that's, yeah.
What do you think some of the best things we can do in being able to say no to those opportunities that will seem extremely exciting at face value, but just aren't the ultimate long-term best option?
The best thing I can say for people is just, and I know this just is so cliche, but the pros and cons. I mean, you can always try, but to do both, but you really just have to sit there and weigh out. And it always helps to put it on pen and paper. You can't just sit there and think about it. That's one thing that I've learned. Yeah. You've got to write it out. You have to be able to see it and for it to really seem real. And you've got to sit down and write out, okay, if I do this one, this is what could be the end result. If I do this could be the end result. And then in the middle, what happens if I try to do both? And then you just have to sit there and really think about what's going to be best for you ultimately. I mean, yes, you've got to stop and think about your kids if you've got them, or family, or loved ones, a husband or a wife or whatever. But really, ultimately, it still has to boil down to you. Because if you're not okay, if you're not happy, you're not going to be able to be of any use to anyone else. That's the one thing I've absolutely learned over everything.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And that's one of the big reasons we talk so much about like passion and purpose and in building these concepts, finding a purpose for your life, even if it's not the one you stick to for the entire rest of your life, but having a dedicated purpose to your life that you can build and develop over time, and then having a passion that fuels toward that. One of the reasons we talk about it so much is because it gives you a standard or like a goal outcome to fall back on. And so anytime you have to make these decisions of, do I want to pursue this or do I want to pursue this, you can say, which one brings me closer to that purpose that I've defined for myself. Mm-hmm. And usually, especially like you say, when you put it down on paper and you visualize it right in front of you, it generally becomes pretty obvious what the right decision is. Even if we don't want to admit it, a lot of times it's pretty obvious, especially to like that gut instinct intuition we have. And so I think, even though, like you say, it's the pros cons list is almost a cliche, I think it's a cliche because it works.
Yeah,
and it's effective.
It's real easy to sit there and paint a picture in your head. Mm-hmm. And you can make it real pretty, especially if you've got that great imagination. You can sit there and be like, well, I can do this, and I bet I could do it like this, and it would be okay. But I bet if you write that down, you're going to be like, okay, you're overreaching a little bit. Learn to be a little bit more realistic.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So I know you've been with the Monsters crew since kind of day one ish, right?
Since, I mean, if there was such a thing as like a negative day one, then
negative day one.
Before Monsters was Monsters, and we were just a little group of misfits.
Yeah, like before Bent Barbell.
Yes. Yeah. And they were even a thing before I was even a part of it.
Okay.
I ended up just showing up at a local insurance agency one day with a friend of mine where a bunch of them just went and benched together.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I had never benched with a free weight before in my life. I was full on a Planet Fitness girly, Smith machine all the way. Nothing wrong with that, but that's all that I knew. And I can remember just getting there and being scared to death, and they put the weight on there, and I think the first session I ended up, I think it was like 187 or something for a double with just a little bit of assistance.
Squatting?
Benching.
Yes. Benching 187?
Yes. It was a little bit of an assistance. And
What?
Because it recently popped up on my memories on social media.
Wow. Oh my God.
Okay.
It was rough, and it wasn't a pretty bench, and there was a little bit of assistance.
Yeah, but like I benched 75 pounds the first time I benched.
Now,
so that's like over double that.
Granted, I was, like I said, I'd been the Planet Fitness girly, so I wasn't like just a total newbie. I had some strength, I had some muscle. And and that's why that had to help, because I knew nothing. My nothing knew how to act as an actual stabilizer. They all just knew how to move things along a guided surface, and that was it. Yeah. So, they had to help me from not breaking my face a little bit, but it went up, and I fell in love from there. Yeah. And we went from having just like the little group of us lifting there. Clayton eventually got the little building down by the river off of Camden Avenue, and there's a group of us there, and then eventually he bought the old Bent Barbell and turned it into Monsters Bent Barbell, and so
that's awesome.
It's been about a decade almost.
That's wild.
So
what did it mean, like going back to those early days where you're just kind of in the garage training and stuff? What did that mean to you to have that little tiny community of just like dedicated athletes all working towards the same thing, all working to grow and build each other up?
I miss the very beginning back then. Mm-hmm. It was, not to say that now's not amazing and great, but
it's simpler. Yeah, it's like the simple times.
Yeah, it was. It was just. It was interesting. I was also really the only female, so it was just me and a whole bunch of these big burly guys. and of course I had my backlash for that and all the lovely rumors that came with it, but I didn't let it bother me. I didn't care. They were all like a whole bunch of brothers to me, and then Clayton's always been like a second father to me, and it's just been, it was great. Especially coming out of the part of my life at that point in time that I had with the addiction and everything. I needed it, and it really helped to keep me on the right path, especially since, without speaking for anyone else, there were other people with similar stories that I could lean on if I was struggling with things like that. And it made all the difference, and it became my life, and it changed me, and it still continues to change me and help me to grow to become better. And it taught me a second sense of family that didn't have to do with blood. People that I would do anything for almost, and that I know would help me no matter what I needed, all just from us throwing around some heavy circles together. But it was great. It was.
Well, as humans, we're hardwired for that. Like, evolutionarily speaking, we've gone through, depending on your beliefs, thousands, millions of years of being tribal groups, and we all have to learn and grow and suffer and overcome challenge. We have to all do that together with our little community. And there's like a bond that builds. Like when you've gone week after week after week for months and years under a bench bar or a squat bar with the same group of people, and you're like extremely like intimately familiar with their challenge and what they've overcome, it builds a connection that goes beyond even words, And I could absolutely say that of many of the guys in the squat crew now. Like, we just know and understand each other. I mean, even just talking to Paul today, it's like you learn to know and understand somebody without having to put any words to it. And that's a very, very powerful type of relationship to have, and it speaks deeply to the spiritual side of being human. And it's a really cool aspect, and it's something that I think is very important, because you mentioned you were coming out of addiction at that point, and it's amazing, never ceases to amaze me how heavily represented the recovery community is in the gym space, not just at Monsters, although I would say probably especially at Monsters.
Oh, yeah.
In some shape or form, and it's I used to say that I didn't think everybody had to be in the gym, but I've changed that now, and I say it doesn't have to be your number one burning passion and desire for life for everybody.
Yeah.
But I do think it is something that everybody would benefit from being in the gym, especially if you are somebody who either is actively battling addiction or is in recovery. It's something that will absolutely serve you. It's the thing that pulled me out of all my battles with alcohol, and it still took me many years to like totally become sober, but it was the one thing that like changed the direction I was traveling. It changed the path for me. It gave me a new path forward. It gave me a way to fight myself. Honestly, that's what it was, to fight myself in a way that actually made me stronger. Now, granted, I did eventually have to get to a place where I went beyond that. Even it wasn't just going in there to fight myself, because that can be taken too far as well. You see some people make an addiction out of training and pushing their body to the limits.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. But as just an initial catalyst to give you something to get out of your brain, to get into your body, and to start building positive energy within yourself, I don't think there's hardly anything better than the gym.
No, I mean, I can remember back whenever Monsters was this little tiny L-shaped garage down by the Ohio River off of Camden. My house was probably, close to 2 miles from that at the time. I didn't have a vehicle. I wasn't allowed to have a license. So I couldn't drive, and a lot of the times I couldn't get a ride there. And so here I am, stuck in my head, stuck in my house, and it was, okay, I can either drive myself crazy and either pick up a drink or a drug, or I can get my gym bag and I can go walk, and I can get to that gym. And I did. And some people called me crazy, but it kept me grounded, and it kept me sober, and it kept me healthy. It kept me exhausted at the same time, because it wasn't fun to walk 2 miles with a gym bag sometimes when it was 90 degrees outside with 80% humidity. But I would walk there and I would get my workout in. We didn't have air conditioning in this gym. And then I would walk back home. I can remember even posting pictures of my sweatshirt afterwards on my Facebook of it just, one little spot of not wet material.
Sweat.
But I tell you what, those were some of the best training days. And I had never felt better mentally whenever I would get back, even though I was just drained and exhausted and disgusting. I felt so good.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish that I couldn't drive now and that I just had to do that to remember what it felt like to have the passion for something, that intense again. Not to say that I don't have a passion for something now, but that specific passion, it really helped to mold me into who I am. And
yeah, it's weird how those moments of like intense challenge and healing and recovery can just become such a beautiful moment of your life. That's where I really fell into trouble, was when I was going through cancer, went through chemotherapy, and then ended up in like septic shock in the hospital. I was in there for like 2 months, and all that happened, and I'm recovering from surgery and everything. I had that same kind of experience where like my job every single day was like wake up, build back strength, get healthier, recover, heal from this. Mm-hmm. And there's just such a simplicity and such a beauty to those moments in life where you just have this like singular focus of, this is my job, like this is my purpose in life, this is who I'm working to become, this is what I'm working for. And then I get out of the hospital and get a job and go to college and enter back into quote unquote normal life. And it's like I lost all that purpose. I lost all that meaning and love and joy that I had for that process. And I just felt so empty in this real life or normal life that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how we have these strong emotional, spiritual ties to those moments in life. And I always wonder if there's like a way we can recreate that, emulate that through just building a purpose, building a new purpose that we want to serve that goes beyond just trying to heal ourselves, just trying to keep ourselves healthy, and even to the point of healing others, keeping them healthy, helping them build up from their challenges.
I don't really know what to say right there with that. I know that the one thing that just popped in my mind, though, with you saying that, is that there were times that, and this honestly may not even relate to what you said, but I used to do some crazy things, go crazy distances to find that next fix so that I could feel normal and function as a human being, get high, whatever the purpose of that day was. And if I could do that, then I can certainly do what it takes or what I need to find that new passion and purpose for whatever I'm doing right now. It takes back to that, walking the 2 miles to go to the gym. I've walked a lot further distances to get dope before. So if I could do that, then why can't I do this?
Yeah, I mean, addicts are some of the most powerful and strong people you'll ever meet in your life. Mm-hmm. And it's like all we have to do is take that energy that you put into your addiction and find something else to put it into. Mm-hmm. And you will be amazed, anybody listening, you'll be amazed at how far you can take any pursuit in life.
Yeah, it was crazy especially with mine. I mean, it was with marijuana, but I found myself, I'd be working out in, I'd be out in Utah, and I would drive sometimes 500 miles one way, just to get out of the state, get into another state, and I remember the moment that I sort of awoke from that and realized that I needed to be a bit more careful with what was going on was I found myself, I was driving down the highway, and I I wasn't hurt, but I was driving and I passed a semi. And out west, the roads are a bit more wild, wild west, kind of in terms of shape. And it was just a 2-lane highway, and I had this truck pass me, and a rock like the size of a softball came up and just smacked my rental's windshield. And it scared the ever living crap out of me. And I really, that was a turning point for me, that it was this wake up call of just like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Like, I am hours into a drive just to get this fix, like hours. And and this was before I had met Matt. This was before all of the cancer stuff had happened. And that was certainly a wake up for me, for realizing what I was willing to do to go chase after something that was, at the end of the day, not helping me whatsoever. So yeah, I could understand that.
And that's where the gym is so powerful, because I think it removes a lot of the barrier to entry of having something to put that energy into. Like, the gym is very clear where you put your energy into. You know, you may not know how to do every single exercise, you may not know how to work every single machine, but like, you walk into a gym and pretty much anybody can figure out what to do in there. You know, so it by default gives you a space to walk into, where the whole point is for energy output to grow in strength or size or whatever it is. And you just go into that space and you can do it for however long of an amount of dedicated time you need. And in the process of that, by default, it pulls you out of that mental state you're trapped in, of this constant like urge to or this constant fighting this decision to give into this urge, you know, and the back and forth and the trying to come up with reasons why you should in your head and reasons why you shouldn't. You know, it takes that whole mental acrobatic battle and it pulls you out of that space, puts you into your body. And when you go through a hard training session, you're in that point of total exhaustion, like you talked about, where you've got like, you've got sweat dripping off of your sweatshirt. It puts you in a different state mentally, and it makes it, I don't even want to say it makes it easier to control those choices, but I think rather it turns the volume dial down on how strong that urge is screaming in your brain. Was that your experience?
Yeah, it almost brings clarity, if that makes sense. I think it just comes from the energy exhaustion, and then all of those just endorphins and the dopamine and everything, and you're just kind of like, okay, so this was a much better decision than what I could have gone and done. And half the time I'm not even thinking about whatever I was trying to escape in the first place. And that's why I love telling people that the gym is a great form of therapy. No matter what you're going through, if you can't get something out of your mind, go work out. Even better yet, and this is something that I had to do recently, because I was always recording myself. Granted, I told myself, you know, I had the reasons for doing it. There's people that like to watch and learn how to do different exercises. I like to just see different striations, you know, all that, I guess you could say, almost egotistical things. But it wasn't until I realized that if I would just put that down, stop recording, put my headphones in, then leave my phone away from me and try to not be on it and really focus on that workout, then I would have even more clarity by the end of that session. And I wouldn't be stressing about whatever was on my mind. I wouldn't be thinking about that next fix. I wouldn't be thinking about the thing that broke my heart. I wouldn't be, whatever it was gone. It wasn't a problem in my mind at that moment. And I felt peace. And that's where, here recently, I actually deactivated the Instagram for a little bit, stopped recording, still not recording, and I'm just enjoying the gym again and enjoying the feeling that it gives to me whenever I'm just maybe not okay and I just need to go and work out. Even without a plan, just go and move. Get some blood flowing through your body. It's amazing what it can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're absolutely right. When you're in that space, and this is something I struggle with a lot too, is that focus on like recording. How can I use this later for content? How can we, do X, Y, Z? And it's for a good purpose to try to build and help people. But at the same time, it's like you're still so external to yourself. And the whole point of being in the gym is to become less external, become more internally focused, and to build that peace and that clarity that you talk about. And so it's really hard to balance that, wanting to satisfy those external factors while still satisfying the internal factors. And I think you're actually very right. It's worth pulling back from that, focusing on the internal side, because as you said earlier as well, another thing that holds absolutely true is the better state we put ourselves in internally, the better we'll be able to serve everything else in our lives externally. I mean, it's the absolute number one rule to leadership, number one rule to how we have to live our lives. And so if we don't have that internal, ourselves internally totally put together and at peace and in control, we're not going to be able to serve those external things as well. And so we can't lose sight of the internal piece in order to try to serve those external pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't fix someone else if you're still broken yourself. Not that we're supposed to fix other people necessarily, but we can't, how do I want to word it? You have to be okay. You have to be happy. You have to be whole if you want to help someone else get to the same place. And at least that's my experience that I've had with it. I can't be broken inside and sit there and try and help someone else. It may help them, but it's not going to help me, if that makes sense. I mean, it can help to distract me, but I know that if I'm not okay on the inside, I'm probably not going to be able to help you that well.
And definitely not to our fullest capacity.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's so important to do these things and give that dedicated time, energy, focus to those aspects of our lives that do bring us that internal peace and recovery and wellness and whatever word we want to put to it. And I think in a lot of ways it sounds like being able to step back from that pro career and focus on your career with massage therapy was allow you to modify your training, modify your recovery schedule, modify so many things in your life that put you in that position to be able to maximize your own internal state for where you wanted it for your goals going forward. So does that bring its own level of comfort and peace, just the knowledge that you're now working to build that person that can serve that outcome you're pursuing now, even though you've had to step away from the pro career, you've had to step away from that level of physical strength that can be so hard to let go of?
it's I can't say that it's not been hard. Going from a 400-pound squat to the most that I'm doing being slightly over 275 at the max, and I don't even know if I could do that comfortably for more than a rep right now, just with the weight and the mass that I've lost from stepping back from the hardcore training. It's been a little bit of mental gymnastics, but recently someone had put me on to a book series that starts off with The Secret by Rhonda Burns. Talks about the law of attraction and manifestation, and it's really allowed me to have a whole new perspective on life and how to create my own happiness, and just how you attract what you give out and what you are. And if I'm not happy, I'm not going to attract other happy things to me. Sorry, I'm also trying to not get emotional.
Good.
A lot of good things have happened since I've really started trying to change my thinking and change just the power of thought. Trying to get rid of all the negative thoughts and the negative feelings and changing them into positive ones, and saying that I already have the things that I want, that way that they're attracted to me. not even saying that I will have this, because that's just leaving it in the future. I do have this, and then it's going to come to me. And I've seen that happen recently. Just like I was telling you guys earlier, with 10 years ago, my ovaries were covered in cysts, and just had a recent ultrasound to where there's not a single growth on them. And there's been no medical intervention for that. Nothing. They're gone. And it's little things like that, to where if you just tell yourself that you are this, you're doing this, you're going to go and do it, as long as you're telling yourself that. What was the quote that I posted the other day? Whether you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
I think it was Henry Ford. Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was Henry Ford. It's one of his most famous quotes, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
The narratives we tell ourselves, and this is why we focus on the mental domain of performance so much, because the narratives we tell ourselves, the narratives we allow to occupy our brain, are exactly what we will end up creating for ourselves in life. And I feel like it's like a really controversial topic. We go back, people go back and forth on the idea of manifestation and spiritual energy and things like that. But at the end of the day, it is absolutely something relevant, and affects so many of the aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
Because we have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of thoughts in a single given day. You compound that over the course of a lifetime. Those thoughts are going to dictate our subconscious actions. Those subconscious actions are going to compound into creating real life actions and consequences.
Yes.
And it's even down to, you can put it under any frame of reference, but look at it under the frame of addiction. As long as you're continuing that narrative in your brain of different things that come up with addiction, of like, oh, I'm just going to do this one last time and then it'll be done. So I'm going to start new on Monday. That's when I'm going to get sober. I'm just going to enjoy the time this weekend, and then it'll be a new time then. Yeah. And you can look at that under any of those lines, but by building those lines in your head, you're automatically delaying the state you want to be in, and you're accepting the state you're in now.
Yeah, I mean, for 17 years, I smoked a pack a day of cigarettes. And last New Year's, before I even knew anything about, the power of thought, or just positive thinking, law of attraction, manifestation, whatever you want to label it as, I can remember I was going through some things, and I had a little New Year's Eve gathering at my house, a whole bunch of women from the gym. And after they had left, it was like 1 a.m. I had 3 cigarettes left. And the reasons as to why doesn't matter, but I remember sitting there and I was just like, I'm not smoking anymore. I didn't say, I'm going to smoke these last few and I might hold on to one for the morning, because I can't tell you how many times I was like, I'm going to wean down, or, I'm just going to have this one more. I'm just going to go buy this one more pack. But I sat there and I was just like, I'm done. And I remember laying in my bed that night. I had those 3 that were left. I didn't even smoke one more. I went and I broke them in half. I got them soaking wet and I shredded them in my trash can. Yeah. And I went and laid down, and I remember just looking at my ceiling, petting my 2 cats, sitting there saying, I'm done. I'm not going to smoke another cigarette. Yeah. And out of the hundreds of times that I've tried to quit, I've never been able to gather more than 48 hours. Wow. I didn't have a craving for like 3 months at all. And this past New Year's was my 1 year. I still haven't smoked a cigarette. And it's now been, it's been a little over a week since I've even smoked any weed. And that's not been an issue either. And I feel better than ever. And it was just from me telling myself, I'm not doing it. Yeah. I don't smoke this anymore. And by God, I didn't. And it's not been an issue whatsoever. And it's just amazing how, without even knowing about what all this stuff was then, how I was just able to tell myself that after years of trying and suffering, and just putting it down and being a better person and a healthier person for it. And It's just amazing.
Yeah. I remember when you first quit last year, and it just was amazing to me, because people don't know this, but nicotine is actually the most addictive chemical known to man.
It was harder than heroin.
Yeah, it is. If you measure the addiction, the receptors in the brain, I remember learning this in school, like the level of addiction, nicotine's harder than cocaine, harder than heroin, harder than opiates. It is the hardest, it is the most addictive chemical. And you'll even see people, and I'm not going to say anybody's wrong for doing this, but you'll see people in recovery lean heavily on nicotine as a means to cope with and help them stay sober from their other addictions, you know. And it's a very, very powerful chemical, and for people to just quit cold turkey is an intense thing, and it's not an easy thing. And I think we do need to be clear too that just because like you had that conversation in yourself, I'm sure it didn't just make it easy, even though you didn't necessarily have cravings.
Not to sound weird, but it was, I blew my own mind with it. The next day I woke up, and because normally I'll wake up and my first thought is, okay, you're going to the front porch, you're going to smoke a cigarette.
Yeah. I didn't have that.
And I can remember telling everyone that I talked to, like, I don't know what, I remember saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I just don't want one. Like,
yeah.
And it blew my mind. And even like everyone that was still like in my life to whatever capacity that I'm telling, like, guys, it's been 6 hours. Guys, it's been 12 hours. Oh my God, it's been 3 days. And they're all just like as shocked as I was that I didn't care. Like, the only time that like it would even slightly cross my mind would be after I ate something. And all I had to do was redirect my thinking, and then it was out of my mind again. And it was mind-blowing. I mean, it just... I don't have any other explanation, except now I can say that it was just the power of my own thoughts.
Well, I think that speaks even more powerfully to the skill and what it can do, because by you telling yourself just immediately, starkly, black and white, changing the narrative into a non-negotiating narrative of I'm not that I'm going to do these, I'm going to smoke these last 3, or I'm going to quit on Monday, or I'm just going to cut back. You just said I do not smoke anymore. Or not that I'm quitting smoking, or you specifically said I do not smoke.
It was a present tense thing, and I don't know why I said it like that, because like I said, I had never heard of any of this before in my life. It was just I didn't know to not speak in present or in future tense. I just sat there and told myself, like, I don't do this. I'm done. Yeah. That's it.
And you changed your own identity in one aspect in that conversation. And that is an immensely powerful practice. People don't even realize how powerful that practice is. Because whether you believe in the law of attraction or manifestation or not, or any of that world of thinking or practice, whether you believe in that or not, we know for sure that the mental state has influence over the physical state. And if you don't believe in that, look up any medical literature study that has ever been done and look at the placebo effect.
Yes.
It is 100% measurable, and there have actually been studies done on the placebo effect specifically, and it will outperform medical intervention in almost every case.
Yeah.
And so we know this. We have a designated body of literature around it, and yet we're so hesitant to apply it to our own lives. And I don't know if it's just because of how Western culture and thinking has been established, but at what point did we allow ourselves, what point do we allow someone else to tell us that we don't have power over our own mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional wellness and strength? And I've been so glad that there's been kind of a reawakening, a resurgence in this area. And then everybody I talk to that has come across it, just like yourself, it's mind-blowing the power and capacity it has. And it's, for a large part, why we do so much of the work we do. The saying that we have of be impossible is this nature of you, not just your becoming the person, not just your working to do the impossible. It's like, I am in this moment an impossible version of myself. This is the narrative I go down every time before I get under the bar for a really big lift. And it's this idea that I am this person who is capable of doing this, you know, and I don't achieve that perfectly every single time, but 100% of what I've been able to do under the bar is attributed toward that. And it's a skill that I initially came across and built in overcoming cancer and recovering from that. And then I transitioned it into running marathons and then into powerlifting. And now we've come to the realization that can work in any context. Now that's just our branding put on it, but it's the same idea of we have the power to decide our identity.
Yes.
We have the power to use our mind, our spirit, our emotion to influence even the physical body. And you can even use your mind to change your own physiology. And that's, for some reason, a scary thing for people to accept.
It is. It is. And it took me like actually realizing and seeing it happen to me there for a minute before I actually did really fully believe in it. You know, I mean, I read this whole book on it, and it wasn't until I started to see even the little things that I was like, oh my God, and then sit there and think back about the smoking. And even if I go back to the heroin, whenever I first got off of it, I mean, that it's all the same thing. I was just, that was cold turkey too. I mean, it was, and there were multiple other times in the past that I had tried to just stop using heroin cold turkey, and it didn't work out. I always found some way to get around it, or I was always like, oh, I made it 2 weeks, I'll be okay to do it again now. And then finally I was just done. And, you know, I went and checked myself in somewhere. Not many people do that. And I was done. I told myself I didn't want to live like this anymore, and checked myself in, and here we are over 11 years later, and I've not had to stick a needle in my arm to feel like a normal person.
Yeah.
So.
And it's wild how many stories there are that resemble that exactly. And I think a lot of times the people who have been most successful in their recovery have gone through a process like that, where they literally change their identity. They change the way their mind thinks. They change the way their body responds to different stimulus. And I think that's where we have to get to, whether it's in recovering from addiction or whether that's in pursuit of a passion or goal that we have for ourselves. We have to get to this place where we change our identity by changing the narrative in our mind first, and building a feedback loop where that transitions into the body and then affects our own physiology as well. Like I'll never forget the very last drink I ever had. And it was under a funny context. I think it was at the when Eddie Hall and Hafthor Bjornsson fought in their boxing match.
Of course.
That was the thing that did it for me. But what it was is we had a whole bunch of our friends over, like all the guys I knew came over. You know, we watched it and we put it on the TV, and I remember it was hard to get on there. And we cooked a bunch of food, and you know, I by this point I was in a much more control. I wasn't in a state where like alcohol was controlling me, but I would still drink occasionally. Whenever I did, it never ended well, because I was never a person who will have one drink or two drinks. I was always a person that would have a drink, and then it's a competition who can drink the most. That's and I always won. I always lost when I did that, but that was how it would be, you know. And so I remember pouring a glass of scotch and starting to drink it as we're watching this fight go out, and then the fight went so horribly. It was just not we thought it was going to be this big, exciting, entertaining thing. Austin remembers. It was just not exciting at all. Like, Thor honestly beat the crap out of Eddie, and I think Eddie's arms just aren't long enough.
Yeah. It was good.
I remember, I think, because this was, a couple years ago?
Yeah, it was 2022.
I was in Nevada.
Almost 4 years now.
I remember being on break at work at the casino watching it.
Yeah, it was almost 4 years now. And I had gone down, because we were living at a different house. I'd gone down in the basement, and I was like cooking stuff on the grill, or maybe people were smoking cigars out there. I think people were smoking cigars out there. I don't remember why I went down to that little patio in the basement, but I remember going down there, and I was chatting with people, and I was drinking the scotch, and the whole time I'm drinking this glass of scotch, I was just not enjoying it. at all. Like there was no part of it that, like, I didn't enjoy the taste, I didn't enjoy the smell, I didn't enjoy the feeling. And for the first time, it was like, I just don't enjoy any part of this. There was a moment when the conversation was done, when we were down there, where everybody else had gone up and I was just standing there by myself on that like back little bottom patio. And I remember walking over to the edge of the grass, and I dumped the rest of the glass out, and I said, I'm not doing this again. Like I'm done with this. And that's how it went. I never drank again. And actually, now that I think about it, very similar to you with cigarettes, for a very long time, I never even had a craving for it. And for a long time, the idea of it just repulsed me. Like it made me sick to think about. And I wonder if that's not because we create such a strong shift in our identity that once we identify as somebody that I don't drink, I don't smoke, that thing that we used to have addiction to actually becomes repulsive. Even the little triggers that would excite your brain, you know, the thought of getting a glass out, even of pouring a glass, that those little things that will excite your brain, not even remotely exciting, in fact, are a little repulsive to us. Yeah. And it speaks to that power of the mind to be able to influence the body and even your own physiology. And we know that this can happen in addiction. There's so many people in recovery that have had a process similar to this. And there's also so many people that have taken this very same skill through a lot of the books you're reading right now and the concepts you're studying, and brought it one step further into their own pursuits for the goals they have now, the outcomes they're looking to build, the passions they're looking to fuel. And it's not necessarily one of these things of just there's another element that comes with it. I think it's not just this, because I can't just say, I can't just say I squat 600 pounds and then get under a 600 pound squat bar and expect it to happen. Like there's still work in every other domain that goes into it, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual. But I think in those moments of there's always so much intensity that fills those moments. Like you talk about laying on your bed with 3 cigarettes, and you're just there's a certain space you go into, and that's where we would really call it like that idea of the impossible. There's a certain space that you go into, and it usually comes from, I don't know if it's immense desire or if it's immense just.
The one thing that I can remember from the anonymous program that I went through with the heroin to get off of that is our book called it The Desperation of a Drowning Man.
Yeah.
Wanting something just so bad that you'll do what you need to, you'll say what you need to, and you just do it.
And that's the feeling, though. That's the feeling I would even have before going under the squat bar. And it's not even a desire for me to, I have to lift this weight. It was this desire of, I do this. I face the impossible. I put myself in these positions where I should have no chance of succeeding, and I give everything I have toward a positive outcome. It was that narrative, but it was these moments of just so deeply, desperately wanting that moment. And it's kind of funny, because I think we normally think in society of desperation as a negative connotation, where I think we can actually use it in a lot of positive ways.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's a very good word for it. That idea of desperation is what comes for it, or comes with it. But it's not like you're desperate and totally outside of control of your circumstances. It's actually desperation accompanied with a decision for the control you have over the situation.
Yes.
I think that's a really powerful combination. Yeah.
With that, you could almost do anything. You can do anything.
And that's why we have that line of limitations do not exist, because the second you decide you have a limitation, you're tying your identity to it.
Absolutely.
Without maybe even ever having tested it. You know, I know that there's a certain weight that I will never squat beyond. Right now, I don't have any desire to go beyond the 500 I did, you know, but I know that there will be a limit. We all have a limit of how much weight we can squat. But if I tie myself to a specific number, then I close myself off to a potential that I could have chased otherwise. I think that's true of any pursuit we have in life, and even addiction and recovery included. Because I've known people who will say, like, this is just how I am. I'm never going to get better. And there's a lot of addicts. There's a guy I was helping, just, I don't even know if mentor is the right word, but just kind of be there for him, help him work through he's battling alcoholism. And he's just, I can see it so clearly, the level of potential he has, the life he wants to build. And I can see that clear path forward. But it's one thing for me to see it. It's another thing for him to be able to see it. And, you know, he got 30 days under his belt and then had a relapse. And after that relapse, we were just chatting. He said, I'm just not going to get better. He said, this is just who I'm always going to be. He said, I don't even know why I keep trying to do this. And it breaks your heart to hear people say that.
It does.
Because, you know, it's not true. And
I was there once before, and I know that my parents could sit right here and tell you the same thing, that even though it breaks your heart, sometimes you just have to let them go and think that. And hopefully they will get to the point to where they find that desperation and realize that they don't have to be that person, and that they can change. They just have to do some things they've never done before, some things that they may not see themselves being able to do, but they've just got to put that blind faith in it and try it. Like my parents would say, that tough love. No parent wants to say, you need to leave, your daughter's staying here and you're not welcomed here. Don't call us for anything unless you're sober. And they didn't hear from me for, I think it was almost 2 years, until I got in that halfway house. And there were times I tried to call them and they didn't answer. And I remember my mom telling me, and my dad saying, that my mom would cry herself to sleep every night when they would pray for me. But I tell you what, if they wouldn't have done that, I would have kept sneaking around, getting high in their bathroom, sneaking out, going and stealing their things, selling their stuff, doing whatever I needed to do. If they would not have kicked their own daughter out on the street to be homeless, living at City Park, I would have never got better. And it sucks to say that, but I mean, and it could have went the other way for me. I could be 6 feet under right now, but I definitely would have been 6 feet under if that wouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, sometimes you just have to let people do their thing and hope that they find the way, because forcing them most of the time doesn't work. I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah. One of the things I learned from Tony Robbins is that he says anybody can change with enough leverage. He talks about leverage in being able to force. He says force change, and it sounds aggressive and it sounds brutal, but that's how it is. I mean, those moments, that moment where you're laying in your bed saying, "I do not smoke," like you're forcing change. And sometimes these leverages that we have to use are not comfortable. Sometimes they're the worst possible thing we could imagine or have to choose. I cannot imagine as a parent having to make that decision to force your child on the street. But as you just said, in a way, that was the best decision, one of the best decisions they ever made for you, because if they hadn't done that, it wouldn't have provided the leverage to get you in a situation where you had to change.
They would have likely had to have buried me.
Yeah. And so it puts us in these positions where sometimes we have to enact extreme leverage because the only other option is death. And that can be true of the leverage we exert on ourselves and the leverage we exert on other people. And it's actually really interesting you tell that story, because that guy I was talking about that I've just been kind of helping like mentor through his recovery, after that relapse, he actually tried to kill himself. And he was so drunk that he failed quite heavily with trying to kill himself. You know, thankfully so, he was not able to kill himself.
Yeah.
But he sent me a picture of where he tried to like cut his own neck and missed very badly, ended up cutting like under the shoulder blade and must have passed out, or under the collarbone, must have passed out. And I don't know the full context beyond there, but I was talking to him days after this happened, just because he was taken to the hospital, held for 72 hours. And then I was talking to him after that. And he was telling me, he's like, I just think I'm done. He's like, I think this is how I'm going to be forever. He says, I'm just not going to get better. And he's just like completely broken. And there's not anything you're ever going to say to somebody in that moment that will all of a sudden make them, oh, I believe in myself now. I love myself now. I'm worthy of this. I want to work toward this. And I was sick to my stomach, lump like clear up at the top of my throat, because I'm like, this dude's going to die if something doesn't change. He is very clear, like right now on a path, he could be dead in days. Mm-hmm. And he said, this world would be a better place without me. And I told him on the phone, and I don't know this guy other than the phone conversations we had. He seems like a really great guy, and I've been really amazed by the work he's been able to do. But I said, because he's got a young daughter, same age as Lily, and just a sweet, beautiful girl. And he loves her more than anything else in life. And I said, he said, I think everyone in the world would be better off without me. And I told him right then, I said, your daughter will not be better off without you when she's crying at your funeral. Mm-hmm. And those were some, as a dad to a young girl, those were some of the hardest words I've ever had to say to somebody in my entire life. And normally that's not something I would say to somebody, because I wouldn't generally be that aggressive towards somebody. Like, that's a serious thing to say to somebody.
No.
But I was like, if I don't say this, like, this dude's 100% dead, and this is the only thing I can come up with right now that is so powerful that maybe this one thing will give him a reason to live. And he broke down on the phone. And I'm not going to say that that's the one thing that like got him sober again. But I do know that on that the context of that conversation, from that moment on, his wording changed. He didn't continue to speak about how his life needed to end, and the conversation shifted towards the reasons he needed to live and the methods at which he could possibly strive to do so. And we talked for a little while after that, and actually just last night, I hadn't heard from him in 2 or 3 weeks, and it's that feeling of like nervousness when you don't hear from somebody. Because anything could be happening. And so I just texted him saying, hey man, how's things going? And he immediately responded and said, man, they're going great. He's like, I'm tired, I've been working hard, but I've been in the gym every single day. I've been going to AA meetings every single day. And just like hearing those words, like immediate response from him, just like that in and of itself made me about break down and cry. Because it's like, man, he's on that path. And, you know, I'm not going to say this was the moment that like got him sober and kept him sober for the rest of his life. I hope that that's the path he's on now for sure. But I know that the path he's on now is better than a path he's been on in a very long time. And it's just so exciting to see him make this transition, make this shift. And and it's just wild for me. It was a wild experience for me to see that anybody can change with enough leverage. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the leverage is brutal and hard for the person experiencing it and for the people giving it, immensely hard. But if the alternative is death, and we desperately want that change bad enough, that's where we have to go to sometimes. But it's that leverage that will affect that change that we so desperately want and have wanted for maybe even our whole lives.
Yeah. And hopefully that was what it is for him, because I don't mean to sound like, I don't want to sound negative or anything, but one story that I always tell people is, because Abigail was about Lily's age.
Oh, really?
Whenever
Okay.
my parents kept her from me.
Yeah.
And this was even before they knew half the extent of what I had put her through. Because the one story I always tell people about how sometimes our kids aren't enough to get us sober. was where I had her in the back seat of my car, and I was in the old Southside Kmart parking lot. I got high in the front seat, and I fell out. Needle in my arm still. I came to 2 hours later, her still in the car seat, in the back seat, screaming her head off. And I was just up front with a needle hanging out of my arm. Someone could have took her. I could have OD'd with her right there. God knows what could have happened, but it wasn't enough. I was just like, oh, well, I feel fine. Time to go get more dope. So it's little things like that, but it's awesome to also hear the people that can hear things like that, and it changed things. Even if just for now, so that he has a little bit longer to get closer to where he needs to be, then that's awesome. Yeah. But addiction's a wild, crazy thing. And I wish more people realize the extent of it and how it's not just some choice. Yeah. Because it's not. Yeah. I didn't want to do that to her. But I will say that her being 15 years old now, and the relationship that her and I have is amazing. That girl goes around preaching about how bad drugs are, and tries to keep the friends that she's around from even smoking cigarettes and smoking weed and doing anything. And she always refers to me. And I don't want to say that that's awesome, but at the same time, what I put her through, one, thankfully, she was young enough to not remember too much of it. But two, that also now maybe she's going to be able to help someone else now too. Or one of her friends from going down some path just because of what I did to her.
Yeah. And that's, man, what a powerful story. Because along with that, even though you'll I'm sure never be thankful for having battled through it, for having had to face addiction or having had to experience moments like that, you can still build good from it.
Oh yeah, I tell
and that's a
people
direct
all the time,
reflection.
Like, if I could go back, I would gladly change the moment that I feel like I could pinpoint that was the moment that turned me into the active addict, which came from when they prescribed me Vicodin while I was pregnant with her. And then when they took it from me and I was still in pain, that's where it started, and it just progressed.
And that would have been back in the height of the opioid epidemic too.
Yeah.
Where they were preaching like nobody should ever be in pain. Yeah. These drugs aren't addictive.
Yes.
That whole narrative.
Yep. All that fun. Oh, man. All that fun time. But at the same time, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't be who I was. I wouldn't have been able to help the people that I've helped with my story, and just in general, if I wouldn't have gone through what I've gone through.
Absolutely. And now,
and I wouldn't change my life for anything with how it is today.
Yeah, and now you also can look at it from the frame of, even though you had to go through some of those moments of the greatest challenge we can possibly face in life, you've been able to build an example of somebody who not only did addiction like negatively impact your life severely for certain time points, but you were able to find recovery, and then you were able to build a path forward, and then you were able to become one of the strongest women who's ever lived. And so you are that example, not just to the people who follow you online, but to your own daughter, of look at what you can overcome in life and look at what you can build. And that's like you say, while you'll never be happy to have gone through addiction, you can take an extreme amount of gratification and pride in your ability to have done that. Because like you say, you could have ended up dead. Yeah. That could have been the end of your story. But you chose to build a different identity, assume a different identity, and have that unruly faith in your own potential to go so far beyond that in ways that I'm sure most people and even yourself never would have expected.
Oh yeah. I never pictured my life being like this in any aspect at any point growing up. But like I said, I wouldn't change any part of it now for where it's at. I mean, of course, would I love to have my kids with me all the time? Yeah. Absolutely. But at the same time, it's all worked out the way that it's supposed to. I have a great relationship with both of them. My son, we have a great relationship. Abigail and I get along. I love having her with me. Yeah. We text all the time. I wouldn't change it for the world. And even though I don't have them all the time, mm-hmm. I'm able to do other positive things during the time that I would normally have those, mm-hmm. have them with me. Yeah. It's all about just making the best use of what you've got.
Mm-hmm. And you don't even have to have them full time to be able to still have that influence and be that positive example and know that you are their hero in a lot of ways. And with that kind of drive and motivation, if you identify in that manner as like, hey, I am this person for my children. And it doesn't mean you have to be around them every moment of every day, because they're always seeing you, even in times that they always see us, and they're always learning from us in ways that we don't even know or recognize or understand. Yeah. And to have that identity built up, it'll push you in such a high capacity. And it ties in heavily with that idea of the narrative we give ourselves, the identity we assign to ourselves, has the power to manipulate our bodies physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and even extend beyond us in the right circumstances to our kids, our families, our friends, and everyone we interact with.
Mm-hmm. Even people we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times that I will get messages from someone like, hey, you don't know me, but I used to see you around Planet Fitness and you inspired me to do this. Or, hey, I saw you here and someone told me that, this and that about you, and now I went and did this. Thank you. And I'm like, I don't know you, but you're welcome. Yeah. Like, I'm so glad that I was able to do this for you. And it's not to say that to like, oh, hey, look at me, look what I done. But it feels good, mm-hmm. just to know that like I didn't try to do this, but yet people mm-hmm. are still able to take something from what I went through and overcame and make something good out of it.
Yeah, those are some of the most humbling moments in life, because we don't always see ourselves as like people who would have that kind of like influence. And you're looking at, we look at ourselves and we're like, you mean you can't be serious. Like, there's no way that we helped you do that.
And don't get me wrong, I still got the people that, are not fans at all for whatever reason. And that's fine.
Yeah. But you're always going to have that. 90% of the time they're bots online anyway. So it's like, it doesn't matter. But what's so cool about those moments is it really centers you and brings you back. And I always feel an unbelievably renewed sense of responsibility when those moments happen, because I'm like, man, there's people watching that I don't even know are watching. Mm-hmm. And I've got to make sure that I work as hard as I can to build myself into that person who can help all these people as much mm-hmm. as possible. And I love those. I love those moments, but sometimes they are a shocking, like stark reality of like the responsibility that we all have to mm-hmm. the potential we can pursue in life.
And the responsibility that we have for the future as well. And there's two parts there that I know of recent. It's a subject that I continue to hit in terms of leaving a legacy behind. It's a portion that I find myself having to think about a lot as the only not parent at the table. Leaving behind a legacy, what kind of impact am I able to make under the circumstances that I've had to go through over the past few years, especially. And it was something that Dr. Jordan B. Peterson had discussed. I think it was just either a solo episode of his or where he had an interview, and he had discussed where, not everybody, and within the worlds that I am in, not everybody's going to be Beethoven. Not everybody's going to have the most played symphonies and music out there in the world, or not everybody's going to be Louis Simmons. And so how do we leave a legacy behind so that the lessons that we have learned and the moments that we've had to experience, whether it be good or bad, how do we pass that on to the future And there's kind of, how do we pass it on to the future, and how do we allow others to learn from that if we're not able to like directly influence them? And that's going to be through our children. It's through your children that you leave that legacy behind, because everything that you have learned, everything that you have gone through, whether it be, and especially, you know, in your case of whether they had to experience it firsthand or if it's experiences that you had that you can then teach them down the road, is that the legacy that you can leave behind through your children, but in lessons that they are able to take and lessons that other people are able to take, it goes through them. And I think that's been a very interesting kind of topic for me to try to think about, with you know, fertility being a huge topic that I now have to deal with the most recent treatment bouts, and trying to think of like, if I can have a family, if that's even a possibility, like what can I do if I have that chance, and what can I do if I don't have that chance? Because there is a good chance that I won't have that opportunity, and I have to kind of take that reality. And it's difficult to even think about, because I was certainly excited to have children before all of this before this shindig went down, and now that I sit here, it's incredible to. It's incredible to find myself in this position of, okay, I'm seeing what other people are able to do, and how other people are able to pass down what they have learned to their children, to pass on to the next generation and the generation after that, and what Dr. Peterson had discussed. But it's also it's a lesson for me to learn, in that if I don't have children, like what can I do to pass down to others, and to see the influence that we've had on people so far with Impossible Performance has just been it's been fulfilling, but it's also, on a personal note for me, it's been a stark reminder that if we will continue to do what we do, and we absolutely love to do what we do, and we intend to do this for as long as we possibly can, and have full thankfulness and gratefulness to do what we do. But, you know, for me personally, I have this kind of the whying of the road is not necessarily right in front of me, but I can see it, and it stares at me every single day, and I have to contemplate that decision on whether or not it's going to be possible for me or not. But I know, at least for myself, both roads are, you know, they're finely paved. The lines are very much down on the road. I would be able to see where to go, and it's not very foggy, you know, either pathway. But it's really interesting to hear lessons like that you have learned, and that especially your daughter has come out so positive on her pathway that she's taken from that. Mm-hmm. It's so incredible to see, and then being firsthand, watching, you know, the two of you with Lily, and what you're able to share from your experiences, not only from yours and Lauren's, but, you know, from meeting other individuals through the business as well. It's just the incredible people that we're meeting here. It's profound to see how excited and how the light sparkles in your guys' eyes when you're talking about that, being able and having that opportunity to pass it down through your children. It's something incredible to see, and I don't know, it excites me for whatever path that I may have to take on that why. I know that what we're doing, whether it be I do my absolute best to make an impact with whatever creative route that, you know, we embark on down the road, especially with the writing that we're getting done here, or if I'm able to do that and to have children to, you know, for that, you know, for this whole term of legacy, it just really, really excites me that no matter what route that I go down, there is something there that's going to be so extremely valuable, enriching, and worthwhile of what we're going through now and what I'm going through now, that it's incredible to see. It's incredible to see the stories that you guys are sharing, and for other podcast guests that we've had that have shared kind of instances like that to where somebody's been able to learn something and come out so positive on the other end. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and, you know, even just from today, regardless of whatever path of that why that you take, you know, Uncle Austin still seems, still seems to be pretty inspirational to little Lily, who was pretty upset that you had to come down here for this. So
I had to go downstairs. I'm sorry.
So regardless of what way, I think there's still someone that is pretty close to a child of yours that can have someone to look up to and can still have that sparkle in their eye. So
it's incredible. Uncle to 9 nieces and nephews.
Well, see, so.
There's plenty to go. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's we've spent so much of this time talking about the power and influence we can have over ourselves and our own bodies, and when we get that in aligned, and we take it one step beyond that to the power and influence we can have over other people and push that in a positive direction. I don't know that I've ever felt more gratifying moments in life than that. Like, despite everything I've been able to accomplish in my own life for myself, like the 500-pound squat doesn't hold a candle to the feeling of watching Sam, who was a little kid who we met through the marathon almost 3 years ago now, and had the same type of cancer as me. He was a patient champion, fresh out of surgery, still on chemo, all these things. We met him at the marathon then, and then randomly this past year, we're going down mile 9, and then we hear somebody yell my name behind us, and we turn around and it's Sam. And that moment of watching him, like, stopping to chat with him for a second, then watching him run off, doing his own thing, like, that's nothing. The 500-pound squat's nothing compared to that. And so I think it really speaks to not just the power to be able to, write this narrative for ourselves, have this identity for ourselves, and then influence change over ourselves. But when we do that correctly and we implement that skill, that practice into enough areas of our lives, it impacts those around us, and it helps change their stories in a positive manner as well. And it makes all of that pain, that hardship, that challenge, all of the worst moments of our lives, it's never going to make us happy or thankful to have gone through them, but it will make good from them. And in that way, I think we find a great deal of peace from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, well, Heather, I really appreciate you being here to chat with us. I appreciate the stories you've shared. There's so much power to your life and the experiences you've had, and the direction you've taken, and the person you've built as an athlete, and now as a massage therapist, and helping people in their own journeys, and even going forward in this new phase of life you're in right now. It was it was awesome to experience last night. We were texting a little bit about just like setting up schedules and plans and everything for today, and you were telling me about some of the health challenges you faced recently, which are pretty intense health challenges to face, but then the last message you sent to me was, I'm all good though, because I'm just so happy and excited to be feeling like myself again. Yeah. And I'm like, man, like, that's so cool that you can have that perspective. Despite all the challenges you're facing right now, you're still in control of that narrative, and you're appreciating the things that are the very best in your life right now. And that's really cool to see, and I can't wait to see where you take it going forward.
Right. So. Things aren't perfect, but at the same time, they couldn't be better.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Yeah. Cool. Well, what is next for Heather Beeson?
I don't really have any set plans at this point. I'm just going to continue to be involved in the powerlifting scene, especially with the USPC as a judge at all the different monster meets, and then continuing to grow my name and business with massage therapy in the area, and just right now just helping people and enjoying life as it goes, and wherever it takes me, that's where I'll be. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, if people want to reach out to you either to chat about your story on this show, or even just to get massage therapy work or anything like that done, where's the best way for them to contact you?
So there is Instagram, which is just hbeastfit. I'm on Facebook, or for massage therapy, you can go to routineneeds, KNEADS.com. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll put all those links in the bio for you guys as well. So scroll down to the show notes there and you'll see all those there. I'm excited. I'm actually needing some massage work done myself after the 2 months on crutches. So I'm excited for it. We'll let you guys know how it goes. I've always, whenever I go into massage, I feel like the biggest baby in the world because no. Here's the thing. I went in for a deep tissue massage. This is actually my first time ever receiving a massage. It was like a year and a half ago or whatever. And I went in for like a deep tissue massage because that's the thing that Clayton said to get. And this lady starts working on my IT bands, and I am like tears streaming down my eyes. And she's like, "Are you ready for me to push harder now?" And I'm like,
I always tell people that I love the favorite part of my job is making grown men cry. And ironically, the women are the ones that usually handle the deep pressure better.
Really?
I actually had to go and get a stress ball for one of my good friends that I work on who is a man just because he's very vocal and doesn't handle it well, but he's very grateful after the sessions. And I actually do plan to at some point start with signed permission, having some video sessions and some mic'd up sessions, just because sometimes it's pretty entertaining. So, but we always say it hurts so good, but you always feel 1,000 times better afterwards.
Well, that was wild for me, that experience, because I'm like coming off the table, like literally, like I'm like glute bridging off the table, and I'm like so tense and strained, and I'm like, I didn't know, I don't think this is how a massage is supposed to feel.
No, don't get me wrong. Like we can do the relaxing and lighter pressure and still get work done. But the deep tissue is usually if you are in pain and you've got some some things going on, it takes a little bit of pain to get rid of the pain. But it's always beneficial, and I always make people laugh when we have a lot of people will leave little notes whenever they schedule with me. One guy always says the usual enhanced torture techniques. Another one's like, "Hey buddy, I'm ready to come cry for another 2 hours," and different things like that. But they always end up feeling better when they leave. I always make sure to have a good time, try to distract them from the pain, but we can do it without pain too. But
it's a good skill to learn, to be able to be comfortable under pain. It's just like the cold plunge. You just gotta
exactly.
And the cold plunge is such a good reflection of this exact technique, because you just gotta sit in there and you are just suffering and you can't think about anything else besides how cold you are, how much it hurts. But you've just got to keep yourself calm, and you've got to just tell yourself, "I'm in control. This is okay. I'm choosing this," like just being in full control of that narrative. And it's so true with I'm sure like the pain of massage and everything else, that because ultimately you're doing it to build strength, to recover, to become healthier, to get out of pain in day-to-day life. And so, like you say, you sometimes to get out of pain, you got to be in pain.
Like I had this other guy the other day, first time coming in, saw me at Planet Fitness, ended up hearing that I was a massage therapist, booked with me, and I mean he's big, a lot of solid mass. And at the end of the session, I was just like, I gotta say, like, you handled this very well. He said, "Oh, maybe on the outside." It was like, but you should have heard me telling myself to breathe on the inside. But he booked again for next week, so
that's awesome.
it works. You just gotta trust the process and take some deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth.
That's awesome. I love it. Austin, brother, you got anything else today?
All set. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was a blast, guys.
All right, guys, the only thing we ever ask for you on this platform, we're never going to stop to run ads. We're never going to interrupt these intense discussions to tell you to buy some random product. The only thing we ever ask for you is if you got something out of today's episode, which we absolutely know you did, please copy and paste the link from this episode into a text message, into an email, onto a social media platform, and share it with as many people as you know who you believe it would help, because at the end of the day, that is how we do everything we are striving for at Impossible Performance. Because here at Impossible Performance, we are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you guys for listening, and as always, be impossible. I truly hope you guys enjoyed that episode today. If you got something out of it, as always, the number one thing we ask is if you could share this episode with as many people whom you believe it would help. That's how we achieve everything we are striving for with Impossible Performance. Click the subscribe button below so you get notifications when all of our episodes drop. And if you want to join in this conversation behind the camera, then click the top link in our description to join our school community today and become a part of the conversation off the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, be impossible.